Hey there guys, so today we'll be taking a look at some of the new things that Taliyah can do with the changes to her kit. So for this I won't be going over all the individual changes, but only the ones that are relevant in the context that I'm talking about them. So let's get right into it. Your Q with worked round, having half cooldown and becoming this huge AoE rock that deals a lot of damage as well as slowing, is something that you can take advantage of from a pretty early point in the game. Do note, however, that this requires a few points in Q and preferably some cooldown reduction. So it does get much easier at level 9, where you have Ludens, for instance, or another mythic, and full points in Q. But if we try it here early level, first you have to place the work round, and then there's this 3.5 second cooldown until you use the normal one. So you can't really do it from the start. So here we come back at level 9 with Ludens, and we can see that it's much more possible to do this, and the slow only just runs out a short while after we start the next queue. So we already get to start the full combo there. And further into the game, where we have more CDR, this gets even more impressive, because we can actually just almost fire the entire queue before the slow from the first one runs out. And they begin to have such a short cooldown that you can just spam them. So this makes her more of a battle mage, and I think that's part of what they aimed for. So as you may know, we lost quite a lot of damage with the removal of damage on W and the second explosion on E, and a lot of the base damage on Q as well. But this combo sort of makes up for it if we add another Q at first. So if we have worked round, this is pretty hard to execute, but W being easier to hit means that you can sometimes hit a QW EQ with the new work round Q at first, and the slow helps the W hit. So I believe it will be surprisingly consistent, but of course not as much as just WEQ, since you are starting the combo in a pretty obvious way. But if you're doing that on someone who's walking into a bush, I think it could be a decent possibility. This can also be done in another order if you've set it up. So you have the work round here, and then you start with the W EQ, and then the other Q's ready before they're out of the stun, which is a great way of using the new stun we have. The stun duration scales with level, so this combo will be a lot more useful when you have your E maxed out. So let's take a look at it here. And we can see we actually got the 2 first rocks from the next Q before the stun was finished. Next up, we'll take a look at some tips for diving enemies. One thing to note is that since the W doesn't deal damage now, it doesn't give you turret aggro either. And we see if I use auto, we do get aggro. So this allows you to play around a bit if you're diving someone, to allow you to start the combo with W, and then you won't take aggro until the other parts of the combo hit. So I didn't even take a turret shot even though I started the combo under the turret there. We can also press Q and then Zhonyas now, which helps a lot with dives. It can of course otherwise work like in many ways. But the reason I put it here is because we can play around with the aggro, as I said. Oh, I disabled turret fire. We can play around with the aggro. And then when we do get aggro, even if you press Q and Zhonyas, it doesn't cancel your Q as it did before. So this is extremely useful for dives. For this reason, I believe you should prioritize Zhonyas pretty early if it's a game where it fits your build. This is especially because the extra dash on the ultimate and the improved roaming with the new passive duration just means that you have a lot of opportunities to roam and therefore tower dive. So taking advantage of this as early as possible with the W aggro mitigation or whatever you'd call it, and with the Zhonyas Q, could actually change a game pretty strongly. We lost a lot of base damage on the Q, but one thing that helps compensate for this is the fact that you can now Q auto immediately instead of having to wait till the first 2 rocks are fired. So if you Q auto, you see we already got it off immediately. And I think that especially early game, where we got punished extremely hard damage wise with the changes, this can compensate for some of that, since you get an extra free auto as opposed to having to wait. Playing around this at level 1 and level 2 could actually be game changing. So as you might know, the new E also stuns when you get knocked through it or dash through it. And this doesn't change very much for our damage combo, but in the case that you're getting attacked, you can use it in another way defensively. So if you first place E and an enemy dashes in it, you have the opportunity to get a free W hit, since the cast time is smaller or shorter. So that means in the 1 second time there, you're guaranteed to just hit him. And I believe this would stun them again. It doesn't say that it shouldn't. So even if enemies, if enemies start by dashing through it, you can stun them again with a W, I believe. However, it won't deal any more damage. It's still a maximum for stone explosions. Alright, so upon further testing, I discovered that this is actually not the case. It only stuns the first time. So we tested by Wing twice and seeing that it doesn't get stunned the second time. So it doesn't say anywhere, but you can't stun people twice even if they dash or get knocked through them multiple times. And I guess that does make sense. But it can still be useful for hitting a guaranteed W in case you want them thrown either away from you or into your team. One last thing is that since your ult has a longer dash range, when you jump off it now, you can, during bot lane ganks or top lane ganks or honestly anything, you can target within a thick wall like this one, and you'll have a lot of leverage to just jump out either way of it, which wasn't really possible in the same way before. So even if you jump out that early, you get all the way over there. So using this, you have a lot of pressure to just catch someone, even if you have the level 1 ult where it's actually relatively short, since this second dash is 700 range from the start. Alright, I hope these tips help you get into the new Taliyah a little bit faster and really take advantage of the new options we have for worked Q combos, roams, and dives. And I hope you have a great time playing Taliyah.